Hi everyone, I'm Sherman with Universal. This presentation is to make you more familiar with or make you more efficient with using Universal's Transflo ELD. After viewing this video, you should know how to install the ELD transponder, what you are legally required to keep in the cab, how to log on to the tablet, how to view instructional videos right off of the tablet, how to record, monitor, or correct your hours of service, how to complete a driver's vehicle inspection report, or DVIR, how to add or remove trailers and loads, what to do in case of a roadside inspection, how to log off of the tablet, and who to call for assistance. Now, the first thing I'd like to go over are the items you should have received from Universal. Of course, the tablet. It's a Samsung tablet, handheld tablet. In a separate box, you'll have an ELD transponder. This is what plugs into your truck and stays up under the dash in most cases. You should also have received a charging cord that can be plugged into a wall charger that you should have received, or a car charger that you should have received. You should also find a glossy covered instruction card. This card is to give you instructions on how to email your hours of service to an enforcement officer in case of a roadside inspection. More on that later. And last but not least, you should have received a wiring harness with 3 ports on it. The square one goes into the transponder. Then you should have 2 other 9, 6, or in some cases 16-pin ports. One is male, one is female. This should match up with the ECM that's in your truck. And you should also have different collars depending on how your truck mounts the ECM inside it. And we'll go through that very quickly. In fact, it's very brief. It's very simple. You locate your diagnostic port. This is your ECM. This is what the mechanic would plug into to diagnose any mechanical issues. You remove the existing port, and then you would take the male part of the wiring harness that Universal supplied, line up the holes, plug it in, and there's a collar that you can twist on the end of it there that locks it in place. You then should also have zip ties in your packet too, that you can zip tie this shut. This should never come unattached. There's going to be another port that the mechanic will plug into once it's installed. The square plug goes into the back of the transponder. Once you plug it in, you'll see the lights flash and you'll hear a series of beeps and whistles. It'll do this for a while sometimes, and it's just calibrating itself, so don't be alarmed. You will also zip tie this connection, and then you want to mount this somewhere permanent under your dash or wherever it won't move. You don't want this flopping around and hitting off anything. Keep it secure. The remaining port is a female port that you put back into the bracket that you took the other one out of. This will now be the port that a mechanic plugs into to diagnose any mechanical issues. And that completes the installation. That transponder now Bluetooths or talks to remotely the tablet. There are certain things that the driver must have in the cab by law. One of them is a working ELD if you have a mechanical or a electronic truck that you can plug it into. By law, you also have to have a blank paper logbook, just in case your ELD malfunctions. Now, what do you do in that case? Well, if your ELD malfunctions, the first thing you do is call Universal. They'll try to work it out and see if they can fix it remotely. If they can't, Universal Safety Department alone will be the ones to tell you it's okay to go to paper logs. Otherwise, you cannot. They will also send you your last 7 days of logs to recreate on paper. That will be your record of duty status until the ELD is repaired. Universal has 8 days then to either repair the current one or get another one into the truck for you. You also, by law, have to have this instruction card we mentioned earlier. This glossy covered card has instructions on it on how to email your hours of service to an enforcement officer. I suggest you keep it with your permit book somewhere where you know you can find it easily and quickly. Well, let's get started with the operation of the tablet. A few features I want you to be familiar with. This is the on and off button. If you have a smartphone, somewhere on it, you will find a on and off switch or button that you have to push and hold to turn it off or on. You also have a couple volume buttons below that on this particular tablet. And you may hear someone tell you to push the home button. That is a physical button that's on the front of the tablet way at the bottom. When you push it, you can actually feel it going in. Okay, now that's not the same as the applications that you will see on the screen of the tablet. The applications, or otherwise referred to apps if you hear someone say that, it's just an image on your screen, little squares at the bottom. We're going to go over each one. The first one is called the host app. If you have trouble with your ELD, you would call the phone number that's right below where it says Universal, the 800 number. Then you would dial the extension 1212. You'll have a couple options there. One, for ELD support on how to work it, and option two would be for technical support if it's malfunctioning mechanically. Either one would be able to help you. But once you push that host app, they will tell you to push the host app, which then allows them to come onto the tablet. Otherwise, they cannot see what you're looking at. They can even control it once they log on to it. They will also need the phone number. If you turn the tablet over, you will see a phone number on the back of it. This is unique to your tablet. So I suggest you know what this number is, either by taking a picture of it or writing it down. If you get with a group of drivers, maybe from your terminal, and you set them down, they all look the same, this will identify yours by that phone number. The next app over is the Universal Move It app. This is exclusively for Universal drivers, and in the future, it's going to help you with dispatching, submitting paperwork, and various other things. But right now it is under construction, so just stay tuned for further instructions on how to use this in the future. We're going to skip over the next one, and we're going to look at this last app here, and it is coincidentally called the Apps app. And the reason they call it that is if you click on it, it'll bring up a screen with a series of apps on it. Most of them are locked down, but there's one in particular that I want you to be familiar with, and it does work. What this has, it's the Gallery app that has a gallery of videos on how to install the transponder, which we went over, and how to work the different functions of it, which we're about to go over. But you can review these over and over anytime you want without having to call in. Just remember to go to the Gallery app. Now, the main app that you'll use here to get onto the ELD is the Transflo mobile app. Once you click on that, it's going to take you to this screen. Now, I just want to go over a few things on this screen before we go any further. The email button here is for if you get stopped in a roadside inspection, you would click on this if the officer requests that you email your hours of service to him or wherever he wants them sent. In this case, you can see there's a place to type in 4 different emails, wherever he suggests. And then you would click Submit. Now, I want to caution you that Universal, along with many other trucking companies right now, are having trouble communicating with each state's email submission department to receive these. So, we're all working on that, and you will get further instruction on that soon. Also, as you go along and learn more about it, I'm sure you'll have questions. I ask that you look over this frequently asked question button. There may be the question that you have on there, and it's answered without even having to call in. So at your leisure, check out the questions from this button. Now, the main app is the electronic logs button. This is what you'll push every day, and If you logged out correctly, every time you log back in, this is what you'll see. Now we're going to take you through a whole cycle here of how to log in, work your tablet, and then at the end of your shift, you log out. And if you do it correctly every day, you'll see this. Now, the first time you log in, go to log in, you may see an email at the top. Okay, but we want to take that out of there. That's your username. It's old information. What we'll put in there instead is a series of letters and numbers, which are the first letter of your first name, the first 4 letters of your last name, and then the 2 numbers of the month that you were born. In my case, is September, and so there's 2 digits there, 2 numbers there, 09 for September. Okay, now that will, once you put that in there, that will default there every time you go to log in. But your cursor will be up on that username line. You will want to take your finger and tap down where it says password. A keypad will come up, and that's where you'll be able to type in your password, which is all numbers, 8 numbers. And what it consists of is your birthday, but it has to be 8 numbers long. So for instance, if your birthday was January 1st, 1970, your password would there be in red. It would be 01011970. That you'll have to remember and put in there every time you log in. Now, I know you'll be tempted to push or put a check mark in the saved password box, but we encourage you not to do that. The way Universal teaches you to log in and log out every day would require this box to stay unchecked. It's for your safety, and we'll explain as things go on here. And once you get those in, you would tap log in, and then you'll see the wheel spinning here as it tries to log in. This will spin around. It should only take a few seconds as it's coordinating its log on. But if it keeps spinning and spinning, I've seen instances where it'll go and go and go. And if that happens, any technician will tell you this is a computer or a cell phone, and a lot of times what you need to do with it for it to work correctly is to reboot it, which really means turn it off and then turn it back on again. Now, you may have to go through this procedure again to get back to this screen, but that should be no problem at this point. Now, once you get logged on, the first thing it's going to ask you is to synchronize this with the vehicle that you're going to be driving. It's going to ask you what vehicle you're driving. Now, what you'd do is take your finger and tap where it says type a name. You would start typing your truck number in there. And once you type a series of numbers, you'll see some suggestions down below it. Okay, mine's kind of unique. If I start typing my vehicle in there, then of course it narrows it down to this one, and then you click on it and it'll put it in there. Now, you really should never have to take this vehicle out of there once you put it in there. In fact, this tablet should stay with that truck. If you work for a fleet, in a fleet, if you change trucks, you leave the tablet in the truck and go to the next truck that should have one in it, and you would log in. It would pull your hours of service up just the same as you're doing it here once you log in. The next thing it asks you is what trailers are you pulling? Well, it says no trailers, but I'm going to attach a trailer, and I'm going to start typing it. I'm going to put my unique trailer in there. So if you put in 3 numbers, it's going to pull up everything below, if you scroll up, that has that series of numbers in it. Okay, so I'm going to choose this one. I'm going to put it in there. If you don't find your trailer in there, you would have to click New and put a new trailer in there. Obviously, at this point, it wouldn't have recognized it first, so you would have to put a new one in there. Once you put it in there as a new trailer, you should never have to put another new one in there. You would just search for it and find it. Okay, so this is the trailer I'm choosing, so I'm going to continue. Now, at this point, we've started our vehicle. We could have started our vehicle. We've logged onto our tablet. We are still considered off duty here. Once you go, it's going to prompt you to inspect your vehicle. If you logged on correctly, like we explained here, it's going to ask you to inspect the vehicles that you've chosen here. Once you inspect, you will go on duty, because when you're inspecting your vehicle, you are on duty, and you can see at the bottom here where it tells you that. So the first thing you'll see after choosing a vehicle is if there was a previous inspection in here by someone else who drove it last, it's going to bring that up. And you could see that it just happens to be me. But if it was someone else who drove it, they may have put defects in here that they found when they left it. And that would prompt me then to go and check to see if it's been repaired since. Okay, but in this case, it was me and there was no defects, so I'll certify that inspection. And then it asks, since you certified the last drivers, now they want you to do your own pre-trip. It's the new inspection. Okay? So in fact, yours, next time someone else logs into this, yours will be the last inspection. So let's scroll down and look at the list of items there that you're required to check before you drive it. I just want to show you what happens if you click on one of the items here. What it does is drill down into that item and say, okay, you said it's a tire problem, but what's wrong with those tires? So you can choose whatever's wrong with it here. And in a perfect world, what this is supposed to do, eventually will, especially for company drivers, is this will go back to the mechanics then and know when this truck comes in what needs to be fixed. It'll show what that driver reported. Okay, but in this case, for all intents and purposes, we're going to show no defects. And then it's asking us this vehicle was inspected in compliance with the regional and or federal regulations. In other words, are you saying it's safe to take out on the road? And when you click yes, you're the one then responsible for it. Now it goes through the same series of questions here with the trailer. There's two separate vehicles there. So again, here's the last person that drove the vehicle, no defects. I'm going to certify that inspection and then do the same with this one. We're going to find we found no defects, so we click no defects and then say it's safe to take out on the road. Okay. So once you do all that, and do all those prompts, then it gets you to what we call the dashboard. And you're going to hear me say this over and over again, to go back to your dashboard, because this is a great starting place to know what to do next. It shows you everything that this ELD feature does. It monitors your hours of service. We've already looked at the DVIR. Right? That's the driver vehicle inspection report. And if you click on it, very simple screen shows you what a completed inspection looks like. Okay, now I'm going to explain how to get back to your dashboard. You see these three dashes? This is how I remember. You click on the dashes and then look for dashboard. That's the one with the house beside it. Okay, and that gets you to your dashboard. Okay, from here now, we did our inspections. I want to introduce you to this button. It's called the Assets button. This shows you what vehicle you're driving, what trailer you're driving, and what load you have on. Let's click on that button. And this is the only screen here. You'll see the top box shows the vehicle you're driving, the tractor. The middle box here shows the trailer that you're driving. And if you can change it out if you wanted to. And this shows the shipments that are on the truck. And in this case, there's no shipments attached. Okay, but I want to explain that this is important, that this is always accurate. Later on, we're going to talk about how to send an officer your hours of service in the past. But before you do, you'll generate a report that has all this information on, and we want it to be accurate. We don't want you to have the wrong trailer number on there or saying you have no load on, but looking at it, you can tell it does. So if you go to a shipper and add a load, we're going to click on New, and we're going to put all the shipping information in here. Let's say this is ABC shipper. Okay, the commodity, that's what the type of material is that we're hauling. Let's call that steel. Let's say we're hauling steel. And then the shipment number could be a pro number, that every load that we haul has a pro number, or a manifest number, or a bill of lading number. So let's put something resembling a pro number in there. Okay, and then we're going to click Add. And that adds that load to our report. Okay, so you can see here's my truck, here's my trailer, and here's the load I have on. Okay, so if you get stopped, all this information is accurate. It'll be on that report. Okay. When you deliver the load, just as easy as putting it on, in fact, even easier, when you put it on, you click the plus, the add for new, and when you deliver the load, you would just click the minus that's right beside the load. Just like that, it takes it off. Okay? So that's the way we're going to leave it, and I'll show you later on the report how that's going to show up. Okay, so this is your assets button. Click on the dashes to go back to the dashboard. Okay, so we know what the DVIR button is, the inspections. We know what the assets button is down here. All that's left is the hours of service. Right now, from the dashboard here, you can see that I'm on duty because when I inspected the truck, it put me on duty. So let's click on that to monitor our hours of service. And the hours of service button is made up of 4 tabs. Status, which is what we're on now. You can see it's in bold. Graph, logs, and options. Okay, we're going to go over each one of these. They're very simple. First of all, down below, this resembles the duty status lines that are on your paper logs. There's 4 of them. There's off duty, there's sleeper, there's drive, and there's on duty. Okay, you can see we are on duty now. That's the one that's highlighted. Okay, now when you start moving the truck, at this point, you're on duty, you inspected the truck, you can get in and start driving it. When the wheels start turning, it's going to automatically go to drive. You don't have to tell it you're driving. Let it go there itself. When the truck stops, there is a delay of 5 minutes. If that truck sits there idle without the wheels turning for 5 minutes, because it may think you're at a red light, but after 5 minutes, it'll go back to on duty, and it'll give you back that 5 minutes of drive time that you were sitting there. Okay, so it doesn't, gives you credit for that. So as you stop and start, the truck will go to drive and on duty, drive and on duty. The only time you really have to change something on this screen is if you are going off duty or sleeper berth for a break. Now let's take a look at the clocks down below. These are time clocks. The rest-in clock is really your 8-hour clock. So you have to take a 30-minute break after 7 hours and 53 minutes. The driving left tells you how many hours you have left to drive. The workday left is your 14-hour clock, and the cycle left is your 70-hour clock. Okay? These all count down as the day goes on. Now, the important thing is up on the top here, this is a little hourglass type of thing that it starts out all blue with 8 hours, and then it'll start ticking down. And eventually it'll get white all the way down, and when it gets to 0, it'll be all red, telling you you're in violation. The number up here is what you need to keep watching. That number will let you know that in 7 hours and 53 minutes, you have to take some type of a break. Well, how do we know what break it is? If you take that number and look to see what time clock it corresponds with down here, that'll give you an idea how long of a break you need. So in this case, in 7 hours and 53 minutes, it's on the rest in line. You know you have to take a 30-minute break. Okay? So let's go off duty to take that break. I'll show you how that works. You have to tell it, remember, that you're going to go off duty, and then you'll see down below another clock pop up right here. This one is how long you have been on your break. We just went on it, so it says 0. If we stay here on the screen long enough, you'll see it'll go to 1, to 2, and it'll count up as opposed to the bottom 4 clocks, which count down. Okay, once this reaches 30 minutes, the rest-in clock will go back to 8. Once this reaches 10 hours, then your 11-hour clock and your 14-hour clock will reset. And once this goes to 70 hours, if you're sitting over the weekend, 34 hours over the weekend, then this 70-hour clock will reset back to 70. So that's what you want to keep an eye on as you're taking your break. So that is the status tab. Now the graph tab will look very familiar to you. This is what your logbook looks like. It shows the graph. There's your duty status lines: off, sleeper berth, drive, and on duty. And this gives you the option to scroll back. Now the law says you have to have today's log, and the previous 7 days of logs in your truck if you're in an inspection. The Transflo ELD has not only today, but 8 days prior, the prior 8 days. And one of the good features about that is that 8th day, if you scroll all the way back to it, so you can't go anymore, this is your 8th day. If you add up lines 3 and 4, which is driving on duty, your working time, this tells you how many hours you will get back on your 70-hour recap at midnight of the current day. Okay, so you can see from the status tab how many hours you have left on your 70, but it doesn't tell you how many hours you will gain or pick up at midnight. That's where the graph tab helps out. You go all the way back to the 8th day, and at midnight on the current day, those are the hours that you will pick up at midnight. Okay? Now, it's also very easy to correct your logs. I'm going to show you an example of what might happen if you do not log out. As we scroll back through, we'll see violations. They're in red. Anything that has red on it is when you're driving in violation. Well, if we look at this closely, this is when I was off duty, but just didn't go off duty. I left it on by accident. Okay, so to correct this, you can click on that duty status line. You just click on it with your finger, and it's going to take you to a close-up of this duty status line. And if it has a pencil next to it, you can click on that pencil and then tell the ELD where it should be, you know, to correct it, to make it accurate. So there, you just change that duty status to off duty. And of course, anytime you make a change like that, you have to show why you made that change. So what you do is scroll down to the bottom, and there's a box there that says add an annotation. That's your remarks, like on your paper log. So you would put on there off duty, and then click save. Okay, so that corrects that log, and if you look back at your graph now, on that date, there are no violations. The yellow indicates that it was changed. You'll have to go back and verify that log, and I'll show you how that works. But you can see there's no more red here because you corrected that log, which changed how the ELD sees your drive time then. Okay, so that's the graph tab. Now, the graph tab shows you what you've done in the past in a horizontal line, like your logbook does. The logs tab does the same thing, only it shows you in a list format, a vertical format. Okay, and it also shows where you were when you made the duty status change, how long you were on that status, and at what time you changed to that status. You also may know or see here that there's a thumbs up with a verified sign on it. That means that all the logs for that day are verified. In other words, you signed your logs. And you can see check marks indicating that they're verified. But because we changed that one, there will be some days of logs that show up like this, where it doesn't have the thumbs up. That's saying that you do not have everything verified for that day. Okay, so you will want to click on that. Once you change it, you have to verify it. And you're basically agreeing, just like your paper logbook, that your duty status is true and correct now that you've changed it. Okay, so then you get the thumbs up. Okay, so this is where, this is the logs tab where you might want to go back in, and we encourage it, that anytime you're on duty, you explain what you did there. So let's say right here on this duty status, back on February 20th, this is where I got fuel in Murraysville. So I would click on that duty status, and then down below, add a annotation, which is a remark, and say fuel. And then click Save. And so if I look back on that status, you could see all the notes in there saying where you got fuel, maybe where you unloaded, maybe where you reloaded, and stuff like that. Maybe you had a roadside inspection, but you can show all that under the Logs tab. You can add those notes. Okay? So that's 3 of them. The only one that's left is the Options tab. Now, there's a few things on here that are we need to be cautious with. These are the exemptions. The first couple, please be very cautious using these. You may never use them. They're very rare, actually. The adverse driving conditions exemption is probably not what you think. Most people are ingrained to think that this is adverse weather conditions. Well, the true meaning of this rule here is that whatever you use for this exemption has to be unforeseen before you were dispatched on this load. And we all know that the weather is forecasted days ahead of time, and you can see wherever city you're going to what the forecast is. So there's almost no excuse to use this for weather unless it's some freak weather pattern. But another misconception with the adverse driving conditions is not only that it has to be unforeseen before you were dispatched, but it only affects your driving hours. What it does, what the rule does, is give you up to 2 extra hours of drive time. So instead of 11, you could have up to 13 for that day if you can argue that something stopped you from getting to where you were supposed to in the normally allotted time. But notice I'd never said anything about the 14-hour clock. This does not affect that. So you still only have 13 hours of driving, all to do within the 14-hour limit. So it's very rare. What you would do is almost wait till your 11 hours are up and then apply it for that day just to get yourself off the road somewhere. Okay. The 16-hour exemption, again, may never be used by a lot of people, especially the over-the-road drivers, because what this requires is for the driver to come back to the same place they started from on the same day for the last 7 days. If you do that, and you're an over-the-road driver, this isn't a local driver, if you come back to the same place as an over-the-road driver every day for 7 days, on the 8th day, you can actually extend your 14-hour clock up to 16 hours on that one day. Notice I didn't say anything about changing your drive time. You still only have 11 hours, but on that 8th day, it'll extend that 14-hour period to 16 hours. Okay, so please use those with caution. If you go to use them, please talk to your safety department to clarify how to use them if you have questions. Now, the bottom 2, or the second 2 here, the yard move and personal use, may be used more frequently, especially the yard move. This is when you are off of a highway but don't want to use up your drive time. Say, for instance, you're in a truck stop or a shipper's yard or a receiver's yard or maybe your terminal yard. If you're off of the highway, you're still considered on duty because you're working, but it will not chew up your drive time. So what you'll have to do is if you want to start the yard move, you click on Start. It'll ask you why, and you can put in there that you're at the shipper. Okay, and of course your duty status shows where you were when you're at that shipper, the city. Okay, and as you move around through the port or the mill or the plant or the ship, whatever you want to call it there, when you're off the road, you will stay in yard move. Now, if you do go out on the road and you get up to a highway speed, it will kick you back over to drive time. Okay, so you want to change it back over yourself. Just remember, before you pull out on the highway, go back to Stop Yard Move and you click on it. Okay. And the same for personal use. Now, this can get this can really get abused here. So be careful using this too. If you have any questions, again, talk to your safety department. But the easiest way to explain personal use is if whatever you plan on doing, you could do in a four-wheeler, more than likely you can use personal use for it. But our company policy limits that personal use to 50 miles per instance. Okay? So again, you can go highway speeds on this with personal use, but it's just really a matter of what you're doing when you're using this exemption. So you would click Start Personal Use. You would say what you're doing. So you're going to dinner. And you could see that the next time you would push it is where it says Stop Personal Use. Okay, now I must caution you on this too. We've seen where a driver would go to dinner, turn the truck off, eat dinner, go back in his truck, start it up, and not check to see if he's still in personal use, and it actually put him back on duty, which then when the wheels start turning, then put him in violation. Okay, so every time, gentlemen, ladies, every time you turn the wheels of this truck, we have to get in a mindset of how will this affect my hours of service if it's not logged properly. This can get you some big trouble. So be careful using it. Always be thinking, and if you have questions, ask your safety department. Okay. So we're going to stop the personal use there. Now the last thing I want to show you on this page is way at the bottom. And I mentioned that if you're ever in a roadside inspection, before you show your hours of service to an officer, you want to go to the Options tab and go all the way to the bottom and click Generate. And you'll see the screen change. What it's doing is creating this report for an officer to look over. This is all the information that legally you have to have on a log, and that he can get all this information off of there. You see the graph at the bottom. But I also want to point out to you that partway down this list, it shows the vehicle, the tractor you're driving, the trailer you're driving, or that you're pulling, and it also shows if there's a load on. Remember, we left the trailer empty. So again, this shows up on that report that has to be accurate when you get stopped. And then the officer can go back and forth looking at different days. You can go back 8 days. Okay. So that's pretty much it for the operation of it. When you're done with your day, this is very important that you log off, and you would use this little snowman guy up here at the top. Understand that going off duty and logging out are two different things. You want to go off duty, but you want to log out too. And this is in case anyone might move your vehicle while you're out of the truck for whatever reason. It will not show up. It won't know who's logged in to put the miles on that truck to. So the next time you log in, if somebody moved that truck, it'll ask if it was you. And all you have to do is click skip if it was not you. It won't assign them to you. So it's very important that you do this. And then like we started out with, when you log on, you'll have to put in your password so that it knows that it's you. But I'll show you how this works. If you click log out, another nice feature here when you log out is it will remind you, first of all, if you forgot to go off duty. You may still be on duty, and it'll ask you, hey, do you still want to be on duty? Are you sure? And then it'll prompt you to log out, to log off duty, go off duty. It'll also remind you that you have logs that are unsigned, or in other words, unverified. So you can click on verify, and that will verify them. Okay, in fact, I have a few of them here. And if, say, you're off for a week or a weekend or something, instead of going through every one of them, you can just go down the bottom here and click verify all days. And that'll do it. That'll log you out. And of course, you want to keep it charged all the time to keep it working efficiently. Well, I hope this helped, ladies and gentlemen. Again, if you have questions, please call a trainer or your safety department. Thanks for joining us.